Well, good morning, food forest gardeners. We're back here in the back end of the food forest today in the drier section, hotter, drier section of our food forest. And we're planting gopher apple seeds. So as we look back towards the house, that's a lusher, greener, wetter area up that way. There's even bananas way up there by the house. And as we come further and further back, it starts to dry out. So we get back here where we've got a lot of figs planted. They're pretty drought tolerant once they're established. And then we've got jujubes. And then right over here where I'm planting the gopher apples, we've got some pomegranate. That's even considered like a desert tree. So you can see the ground is generally sandy, hot. This is the habitat for gopher apples. You know, in Florida they live along with your longleaf pines and saw palmetto and wiregrass, that sort of stuff. You'll see gopher apples living in that type of habitat, pretty hot and dry. So right in through here, I've already planted about 13 seeds. Here's another one here. I'll just go ahead and stick this one in the ground for the last one there. And just cover that up with some dirt, a little bit of leaves. So it's pretty similar to what happens in nature when these are planted. Now they're often eaten by gopher tortoises and other animals, and they pass through their digestive tract, and they get deposited along with a little bit of fecal matter, and that helps to fertilize them. I looked it up, and it according to the information I got, the seeds don't have to go through that digestive tract in order to germinate. There are seeds that are required. You have to put them in some acid, or some seeds have to be cold stratified, so you got to put them in the refrigerator for 2 or 3 months over the winter. It's not the case supposedly with these. So we're in close to mid-August now. I just did a recent video where I was hiking and I came across a bunch of ripe fruit, gopher apple fruit. So I just collected that. And but as you can see, the seed was nice and clean, and I found the best way to clean that seed is to just pop the gopher apple in my mouth and chew the peel and the pulp right off the seed. It still didn't quite get all of the pulp off the seed, and you know, gopher apples aren't the fruit you're going to write home about. They're tasty. Don't get me wrong. They're tasty. They taste nice and like a fruit punch with a sort of a custard taste. In fact, I would say the closest thing to it that I've tasted are the native Florida pawpaws, the little scrub pawpaws that live in Florida. They taste a lot like gopher apples to me. But anyway, getting back to it. So you can't quite get all the pulp off, and there's not a whole lot of pulp there to begin with. But then the information I got suggested soaking them in water overnight, and I did that. And this morning when I got up, that pulp, I was able to just wipe it off the seed with my bare hands and got them pretty clean. You want to get the pulp off the seed, according to what I looked up, because you know it can grow mold, and that mold and a fungus can then attack the seed. So as you saw, I got them pretty cleaned and put them in the ground there. You want to plant them this time of year when it's nice and warm, and you don't want the seed to dry out. From the time you pick the fruit to the time you put the seed in the ground, you just want to make sure during that period, and for me it was about 24 to 48 hours. I picked some of them 2 days ago and I picked the rest of them yesterday. So during that time, I just made sure that those fruits and seeds didn't dry out. And I just covered them with a little bit of leaf mulch, and it's during the rainy season now in Florida. I'll probably go ahead and throw some water back here on these. They're just planted in this area today because we're supposed to get up to like 95 and just a blue sky sunny day, which is unusual because we've had a lot of rain for the last 3 weeks or so. And then the rains are supposed to come back starting tomorrow. So in those conditions, they should sprout. And if it looks like they might be the weather might not be cooperating, it might be drying out a little bit, I'll water them some. But as long as it's wet and warm and the seeds are nice and fresh, they should pop up. Gopher apples are a plant that has rhizomes, which spread just below the surface of the ground horizontally. And then it's actually a stem. It's a type of stem. It's not really a root. And a rhizome has nodes just like stems. And then at each node, it can send either a leafy part straight up or a taproot straight down. And they have really deep tap roots. And this is why they're notoriously difficult to transplant gopher apples. They have very deep tap roots, and plus those rhizomes are very important. When you try to dig them up, it just destroys everything that supports the plant, and they're very hard to transplant. So this is supposed to be the best method to propagate gopher apples. Now, I'm not really growing them so much for food for myself. I mean, I don't mind eating them, but you could eat a whole bag of gopher apples and still be hungry. They're tasty. I just like the fact that it's a native plant. Just about everything you can imagine in nature in Florida likes to eat gopher apples. So deer, gopher tortoises, raccoons, opossums, even squirrels and birds and all sorts of things. I think there's over 100 maybe different animals at least that like to eat gopher apples. So I'm growing them just because it's a native Florida edible plant, and it's got some wildlife value. Now for me, back here, this is the part of my garden that I expect will remain the driest and best habitat for gopher apples for the longest, but it's not going to stay that way forever. Eventually I'm going to have enough big trees back here between my chestnuts here, my jujubes, you know, even my wax myrtles like this guy, and the pomegranate. All these trees are going to get big, and not to mention my oaks here on the back line, and they're on the south end of my property, so they throw shade towards me where I'm standing here. So all of this area back here is going to become more shady, wet, and lush, and that's really not the best habitat for gopher apples. I would just like to grow them for a few years, and maybe some of them will find a nice sunny last, vestige of a sunny spot left in the garden, and may last a little bit longer. But eventually I do expect this to be just like the rest of my garden back this way, which is happening on a much faster schedule. I've got a lot more. I've got my Asian persimmons right up against the back of the house. I'm already shading things a lot with a lot of tropicals over here, the Mexican sunflowers and the bananas and so forth. This area here is getting lusher, and the soil's getting much more rich, much quicker. But my plan for the long term is that this entire 1/3 of an acre or so that's back here, maybe close to a half an acre, this will all be lush like that, a lush, moist, rich forest. In that case, it will no longer be very good habitat for gopher apple. Okay, that's it for now. Just a little bit on gopher apple propagation. Y'all take care and happy gardening, everybody.